Hello listeners everywhere. Welcome to the Archive of Audio Antiquities, a voyage into the vaults of wonders on the wireless. In a moment, Simon Exton and Ken Moss will be here to speak to you.
Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome back to the Archive of Audio Antiquities. I'm Ken Moss.
I'm Simon Exton.
This month we are reviewing the Big Finish Doctor Who audio adventure, Dust Breeding. This was written by Mike Tucker and released in June 2001, starring Sylvester McCoy as the Seventh Doctor with Sophie Aldred as Ace. On 19th century Earth, artist Edvard Munch hears an infinite scream pass through nature. Centuries later, his painting of that scream hangs in a gallery on the barren dust world Duchamp 331. Why is there a colony of artists on a planet that's little more than a glorified garage? What is the event that the passengers of the huge, opulent pleasure cruiser Gallery are hoping to see? And what is hidden in the crates that litter the cargo hold? The Doctor's diary indicates that the painting is about to be destroyed in mysterious circumstances, and when he and Ace arrive on Duchamp 331, those circumstances are well underway.
Did you even bother to ask who I might be? Where I came from?
A backwater planet called Duchamp 331.
No one young ever comes here.
You get the long-haul pilots. Well, ships are always refuelling here.
No one stays, not for long. They're always quick to leave, Duchamp. This is where they send you to die.
Mayday. They're dead. Do you hear? Everyone dead. Killed by the dust.
Those krill creatures, madam. He's unleashed them on the passengers and crew.
For what?
The Scream by Edvard Munch.
Edvard Munch.
Oh.
Yes. How do you do? I'm the Doctor. You've been alone for a long time, haven't you? Trapped in the painting, influencing the world around you without ever being able to interact with it.
Time Lords! The dust belongs to me!
My God! What is that? If the Doctor's right, the end of the world!
Now, we have quite deliberately listened to this after last month's savagery of the Lovecraft invasion to balance out the fact that we are not, as may have come across, completely and utterly anti-Big Finish, because this is one of the greats. It's one of the all-time go-to stories if you want a nice slice of really good audio drama. Dr. Exton, you've always liked this as well, haven't you?
I have, and I really enjoyed listening to it again. And it's one of those things where, and we've seen this with a lot of things that we've podcasted about, I see completely different things when I'm actually focusing on it to review. And the thing that I noticed in this, as much as I was enjoying it, the Doctor and Ace don't influence the plot in the slightest. They turn up, apart from rescuing Bev, they don't save anybody else. The whole denouement is when Guthrie blows the planet up. So the Doctor doesn't sort that out. He doesn't sort the Master out. The story would happen exactly the same, with the exception of Bev's survival, if the Doctor and Ace wasn't there.
Yes. I think there is the whole mental battle at the end with the warp core.
But that didn't need to happen, because the warp core was actually destroyed by Guthrie, who wasn't involved in that mental battle at all. The Doctor didn't win the mental battle. Master didn't win. They were just faddling about while Guthrie was having his dramatic moment and then touched the blue touch paper.
Put in those terms, you're spot on. I'd never thought of it like that before.
I haven't before now. It doesn't alter the fact that I really enjoyed it. I think the performances are great. I think some of the sound design is wonderful.
Yeah.
The chronology of the Master was an odd choice. The whole thing saying, I've lost the power that I got from the Traken source and I'm going to have to find a new body. Does this mean that it's after survival when all the others, like the Seraphim, have been and gone and involved with the cheetah people and everything? In which case, if it's that master body that has decayed down, why is it going back to Geoffrey Beevers? It would have made an awful lot more sense if this was something that happened between the Deadly Assassin and the Keeper of Traken.
Yes, but the problem with that is that you've no real progression of the character arc. Chronologically speaking, it's better if the Doctor and the Master are synchronous rather than essentially being the fourth Doctor's Master. I mean, it was a bit of a fudge, don't get me wrong. The Master had pissed off the warp core. It had stripped away his Trakenite body and left him with the decayed form that he was underneath. I thought it was a bit of a fudge, but at least they didn't just pretend that nothing. They tried to explain it away within the context of the story.
No, it didn't really work for me. I think it would have been an awful lot better, particularly with Geoffrey Beevers' voice being so reminiscent of the way that he played the Master in The Deadly Assassin. It would have been an awful lot better if this had been pre-Keeper of Traken. That's a very, very minor niggle.
Yeah, I've got to say, the fact that they got Geoffrey Beevers back, and he was so bloody marvellous. I have got to admit, when this came out, it wasn't fanfared that they'd got the Master back. It wasn't in any way announced. It was supposed to be a lovely surprise for listeners, and it was a lovely surprise for me. And it's only afterwards you think, so obvious. Mr. Sita. And you didn't spot that. Yeah. For anyone that doesn't know, it was a long-running joke through the 80s that the producer at the time would hide the fact that the Master was coming back by giving him pseudonyms that were acronyms of either the actor's name or the character's name, so that it wasn't obvious in the Radio Times who the villain was that week. So Big Finish have had a crack at doing that themselves. And it worked. But the end of episode 2, where there's that reveal, it's the most wonderfully malevolent voice. Geoffrey Beevers gives a cracking performance.
Who's there? Come out. I have a gun.
What is it, Clemp? What's going on?
I'll get back to you later, Ma'am.
Clemp, I order you to...
Well done, Mr. Clemp. She really does have the most irritating voice.
I must respectfully ask you to be civil when talking about my employer, Mr. Sita.
Respectfully ask? Respectfully? After you and your armed thugs come down here and break into my cargo?
We are conducting a safety check. We had some trouble down here earlier.
Yes, I know. You seem to be very interested in my business, Mr. Clemp. Curiosity can be a very dangerous pastime. These eggs, for example. Fascinating, aren't they?
Mr. Sita, I must ask you to stand back.
Witness the birth of one of the ultimate weapons.
My God, what are they?
The Krills are an ancient and devastating weapon, Mr. Clemp, and the means by which I shall become all-powerful.
Who are you?
I am the Master, and you will obey me.
I mean, we have discussed this briefly. You didn't see it coming either, did you?
No. I mean, because I knew who the actor was, I had thought to myself, he's putting in a very mastery performance. But it still came as a surprise when he was revealed as the Master.
I mean, he strides about this ship, and he's being very mysterious in this jewelled mask, and the sound design of him wearing this mask is all very muffled, and it's beautifully done to the point where the sound design changes when he takes the mask off and surprises Madame Salvadori with how deformed he is underneath.
Keep away from me.
Did you even bother to ask who I might be? Where I came from? No. I blinded you with the legends of my fortune, beguiled you with wealth and the promise of power. You have spent your life looking at masks, Madame Salvadori, without the merest thought of what might lie underneath. See what lies beneath my mask.
Oh my God.
Unpleasant, is it not? Would you let me into your circle if you had known? Would you have wooed me if you had the slightest inkling of what you were letting loose?
No.
You are pathetic. You crave power and dominion, but you do not have the stomach for what it takes to achieve it. You sanitize your unpleasantness, wrap it up in baubles and trinkets, and call it the trappings of civilization. But in the end, madam, we aspire to the same dreams.
That I really thought was a nice little touch. And kudos here to Caroline John. Caroline John and Geoffrey Beevers were married in real life. And they spark off each other very well. And there's even a little line in there where the Master says to Clemp at some point, who shuts off the communicator, "Bravo, Mr. Clemp. She really does have the most irritating voice." And you just think, yeah, there's a husband-to-wife moment there.
Yes, and they were playing on that, and it's really nicely done.
Because Caroline John's given this, she's obviously been given free rein to do a sort of a German, Russian, East European hybrid accent. It's not supposed to be anything. It's just a horrible mismatch of accents to irritate you.
It's utter pantomime and wonderfully done.
It's supposed to be that bad. And she pulls it off perfectly. I think the only thing that I found a little bit unrealistic with the Salvadori character is that she sacrifices herself. Now, all the way through, she's been this completely egotistical, self-serving character, very acquisitive and only really out for number one. As a final act to throw herself to the krill,
But that's not a self-sacrifice. That's just her having had enough.
I struggled a tiny little bit with that, but again, a minor niggle. Just coming on to the krill, it's quite explicit within the story that the Seventh Doctor and Ace have encountered the krill before. Now, this story was written by Mike Tucker, who did quite a few of the BBC books. Some of them are with Robert Perry, some were standalone. But he really, really nails this Doctor-companion combo. I mean, those guys really got the feel of that era. And effectively, they spun off their own series. The continuation of books and audios were very much, they had a feel to them, and I love the way that they write. Mike Tucker, he was one of the visual effects guys on original Doctor Who, and he's come back and done model work for new Doctor Who as well, but the way he's written for this combination, he's really got these two screwed down. But what I was going to say was the krill pop up in one of their books called Storm Harvest, which is set, I've not read that for, 25 years, but it was set on a planet called Coralie, where the krill had been invaded. And I can still remember the blurb in my mind's eye on the back of the book that the krill, the pure aggression, pure rage, there's nothing for me to reason with. And here they are popping up again in an audio as a semi-sequel to Storm Harvest. And this story itself is a direct follow-on from The Genocide Machine, which chronologically was the last Big Finish story to feature the Seventh Doctor and Ace. So it's all nicely, everything is continuity heavy, but it's done in such a good way. It's just hats off all round for this one. I loved it.
Yes, I agree. I've had some very minor niggles about it. They're very minor. There's nothing I don't enjoy in this. It's one I can listen to over and over and over again. And yeah, absolute antidote to the last episode.
Yeah, I'm sorry to say that the chasmic difference in quality between this and the last one, it's right there, I'm afraid. But I've come back to Dust Breeding a lot over the years. Some of those early Big Finish are among the favourites that they've ever done. Now, whether that's just because I've heard them so often, they've seeped into my heart as lovely little nostalgic glimpses into a period of Doctor Who that was my golden age. The early 2000s, late 90s, when it was all books and audios. I adored that period because how do I put this? It wasn't this great populist behemoth that it became. It was something for people who liked Doctor Who, and it was written and produced by people that liked Doctor Who and kept the flame alive. And some of those early Big Finishes, I know that we've got different views on some of them, but I've got a real warm glow for certainly the first 30, 35 releases. And yeah, this was one of them. I think this was 21 in the range. So still quite early on, but yeah, Lovely, lovely stuff. And as you've said, every time you re-listen to these things, you notice something else. Let's rate this in earworms.
This is the song that never ends. Yes, it goes on and on, my friends.
What are you going to give it?
10.
Crikey, right. I hovered about giving it a 9 because I'm not going to I'm going to give it a 10, but the name of the monster I thought was a little bit... Is that the best you can do? Ripping off Star Trek. That's about the biggest niggle I've got about this thing.
I toyed with the idea of giving it a 9 because the Doctor doesn't influence the plot at all. And then decided not to, because I have listened to this dozens of times over the years, and this is the first time I've noticed it. So it might be that he doesn't influence the plot at all. That doesn't stop the plot being bloody good.
Yeah, it's heartily one to recommend. I mean, you can't get this on CD anymore from Big Finish. It's one of the very early ones. They're not going to repress it. The download is available. It's about £3, I think. For 4 episodes, it's bloody good value for money, and you will love this one. So yeah, 10 out of 10.
And they'll continue singing it forever just because.
Have you got something to recommend for us this week?
I have a wonderful Doctor Who podcast. It's called Hamster with a Blunt Penknife. And it is by a lovely fella by the name of Joe Ford, who, with guests, each episode does a commentary on episodes of Doctor Who, classic, modern.
Hamster with a blunt penknife to do it quicker.
It's really, really entertaining from somebody who loves pretty much every era of the show.
Including Jodie Whittaker.
Including Jodie Whittaker, but he's not a fan of Stephen Moffat.
Right.
And it's possible by the time this comes out, there may be a familiar voice on there.
Really, Dr. Exton? Have you guessed it?
I have recorded on their commentary on The Web Planet.
Splendid.
Which is one of my favourites.
You may have mentioned it once.
And
or twice.
Unfairly maligned by a lot of fans.
50% of the presenters that you're currently listening to. Mm-hmm. But until next time...
I'll change your mind. Changed your mind on the Mythmakers. I changed your mind on the Savages.
You did. But next time we are going to be listening to The Road. It's a story by Nigel Neal. It was adapted for radio, I think, by Toby Haydock. Stars Mark Gatiss and Adrian Scarborough.
This is something that we've been meaning to do for quite a while because we listened to it way back when it was available.
We're both fans of Nigel Neal. He's done some cracking stuff over the years. So, yeah, that will be our next episode. But until next time, thank you very much for staying the course with us, boys and girls. Dust Breeding, heartily recommended. Whether you're a fan of Doctor Who or not, it's a bloody good slice of audio. So, yeah, heartily recommended.
But it will help a lot if you're a fan of Doctor Who.
It will. Until next time, thanks again, boys and girls. Ta-ta.
Bye now.
The archive of audio antiquities featured Simon Exton and Ken Moss, and the announcer was Jenny at Blue Box 99. All featured soundtracks are the property of their respective producers, and no infringement of copyright is intended. Title music was by Edward White, and the programme was produced by Maverick Productions. For more information, please visit maverickproductionsuk.blogspot.com or find us on social media.